Hello gang, Sharpshot21 here, and we're back on the Mini. Gonna keep up with this format a little bit. Just showing you right there what the fastener type is, or the bit type is. They're Torx bits that are holding on. I forget exactly what I'm pulling off. I think it's the fuel rail at this point. I believe it's 4 Torx bits that hold it on. I think they're like E30s or E40s, fairly sizable Torx. They are something that if you don't have when you work on this car, you will need to get. They are everywhere. Standard Torx and E-type Torx, which are where the head of the bolt has the Torx fastener and or the Torx bit style. So you'll want those. The fuel rail is stuck in there. It's held down with, I think I said 4 fasteners, plus the high pressure pipe on the far end that's connected to the high pressure fuel pump. So we're going to have to undo that pipe. They say that pipe is single use. It's not. You can use that a couple of times. And then this rail with the injectors is in there. It takes a little bit of reefing on to get it out. I think I'm checking the manual right now. It's the other thing. If you don't have I believe it's the Bentley manual. I'll leave a link in the description to the manual that I'm using for this build. It is basically the Bible for this car. If you don't have it, you should get one if you do any type of maintenance beyond oil changes on these things. It's got the full wiring diagrams with the wiring colors and the connector locations. It's got torque specs for everything, oil types for everything, how certain things go together and come apart. Yeah, it's if you don't have it, you need it. So I think I'm still checking a couple things here. Not sure what. Again, it's been a few years since I actually filmed this. And I can't use any of the audio from it because it's all got the radio that's in the shop in the background. But if you've been paying attention, first clue that this is not the problem that we thought it was, or it's the problem we thought it was, which is no compression, but it's not for the reasons we thought it was. These vehicles are prone to breaking the top timing chain guide, and as you can see on the near side of the engine here, the top timing chain guide is still in one piece. We'd also verified before we took this apart that it did have the new and updated timing chain guides installed. So we're a little miffed at what's going on. Okay, now I've got a little pry bar. You're going to have to pry a little bit to get this rail off. I'm sorry I'm in the way. It does come out. It is kind of stuck in there because it has to be. This is a direct injected motor. Those fuel injectors go directly into the combustion chamber on the top of the cylinder. So they're sealed extremely well. There we go. Now I'm taking off the bolt, or the flange nut that holds the high pressure fuel line from the pump to the rail. I'm just taking it off the pump side. You don't need to take it off of both. Unless you're still in the car and you don't have clearance. Then you can take it off of both. I wouldn't recommend using it more than twice, though you probably could. It wasn't that expensive a part, I don't think. I think they're only like 30 or 40 bucks. I'd reuse it a couple times and then get a new one, just because high pressure fuel, granted it's the cold side of the engine, but the exhaust does run right underneath where that pipe is. So you don't want to catch your car on fire. They also say you're supposed to replace the seals every time you take the fuel rail out. You don't need to. You can replace the seals every couple of times it comes out, I'm reusing the same seals that came on this. Okay, so that silver pipe I'm pulling on, that's the fuel rail. And attached to that are the injectors. And again, those go straight into the combustion chamber. There we go. A little bit of a struggle to get it off, but 4 injectors, all electronically controlled, with a pressure regulator or a pressure transducer in the rail as well. Kind of slick piece of kit. If this is the first time you've had it all apart, depending on your mileage, you may wish to replace the injectors. They're spendy, but necessary to replace at times. If they get clogged, if they get dirty, they don't inject as nice. I'm not sure what that was. I think that was a spring clip. That's supposed to hold the water tube there that runs from the water pump into the thermostat housing in place. Now there are some E-type Torx that are holding the high pressure fuel pump onto the block. I think they're E-type Torx. They might just be standard Torx. I think there's only 3 or 4 of them that hold it on to the cylinder head there. We'll pop those off and we'll get this out. Now, the high pressure fuel pump and the vacuum pump, which I don't know if I pulled off yet or not, both go into slots on the back side of the camshaft. One on the intake cam and one on the exhaust cam, and those are used to spin them. Both pumps are prone to locking up. When they lock up, they will destroy your engine. They are replacement items. I need to replace the high pressure fuel pump on the Mini here shortly. Excuse me, shortly. I replaced the vacuum pump when I did this job on the engine. Both of them should be replaced by 100,000 miles. Just better safe than sorry, because they will grenade the engine when they lock up, because they'll lock up the cam. It may or may not stall the engine, depending on how well the cam sprockets are attached and how well the crank sprocket is attached. If they don't lock up the engine, you're going to crash valves into pistons, you're going to bend shit, you're going to break shit. Not good. I'm doing this the somewhat hard way because we did already break this free with the impact. We had that bolt out, but I needed it back in there for a couple things here. So we are trying to, I'm trying to take the snout bolts off. There are 3 little bolts in there that hold the balancer onto the snout, and then the snout bolt holds the snout stub onto the crankshaft proper. It's a mess of a design in there. I don't like it. I don't understand why they did it that way. Hopefully this engine never has to come out of the car again. If it does, I'm going to be doing some serious modifications to the whole drive assembly on this thing. Just because of how it was put together. So, all right, I've grabbed the little impact here. And yeah, getting into it a little bit, but I got to get some of these bolts off. And I need to use this small socket, but eventually it's, yeah, all right, well, fine, we'll get it out. And explaining I'm using my sockets for this because we don't have any of the 3/8 drive impacty sockets, and I think those might be E-type Torx, so it's really a non-issue. You got to break those free to get that that main accessory drive pulley off, and that does have to come off to get the rest of the engine out or disassembled. Because we're also replacing like the front main seal. We didn't need to do the rear main seal because we didn't get into it that far. There you go. Okay, so now you can see that there is 3 bolt holes surrounding the center bolt. That center bolt holds that snout onto the crankshaft, and then the timing cassette, because it's kind of held as a unit. Once you take the cam gears, the cam sprockets off, and you pull that snout out, you can pull the whole set of lower guides and the crank sprocket up through the passageway on the side of the motor. I don't like that that's how they did it, but I can also kind of understand why they did it that way. It makes install pretty quick and easy. It keeps the timing set lubricated, but it is not the most robust way to do it. It really should be keyed or pinned. And if you're clever with how you design your parts, you can do it. It's been done like that on many, many cars. Timing belted cars don't have that problem because you actually want to keep the belt out of the oil. So usually there's plastic or metal covers that separate or that cover that all, and it's on the outside of the engine proper. Makes it a little easier. This one is timing chained. Usually timing chain vehicles are more robust, but obviously this one has, or this design of engine has some issues. What am I pulling out here? Yes, that is the timing chain tensioner. It's a hydraulic tensioner that uses engine oil to help keep proper tension on the back guide. I'm using back in terms of that guide is facing the back of the car when it's in there. They did do an updated tensioner design. I did get one of those when this goes back together. But you do need to take that tensioner out because that plunger on the end actually sits in a recess on the guide, and you can't get them out unless you remove that. That is accessible from the back of the engine if the engine is in the car. The timing set replacement can be done in the car. There are cutouts and passageways through the fender on that side to where you can get to all the bolts and the crank snout and all that stuff. But if you're going in because it's slipped and you've crashed things, it is easier and faster to drop the front suspension cradle, drop the engine, split it, and go about it the way we're going about it, because then you can actually make sure that everything is done correctly, the tolerances are correct, and that the design is, or the reassembly is done as it should be with it up on a stand. Because there are some pretty significant torque figures involved when you put this thing back together, which we'll touch on in a later video. I think at this point I'm just starting to crack the cam bearing caps off, and we'll pick things up in the next video. So we'll see you then. Stripes out. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. It really helps me out, and it lets you know when I put something new up. New videos will be going up on Tuesdays or Thursdays at 8 a.m. Eastern. And if I do decide to do live streams, I will try to give 24 hours notice. So hit the subscribe button on the channel, and you'll be notified when I post that stuff too. Hope to see you next time. Sharps out.